Well, in the last few minutes, the office of Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has issued a statement clarifying its actions this morning. This is after Donald Trump accused Israel of having unloaded after the ceasefire was reached. Israel claims Iran violated the ceasefire first, and then in response, the IDF launched a strike that destroyed a radar near Tehran. Netanyahu claims he held off on a tougher strike against Iran after talking to Donald Trump. Well, I'm joined now by our security and defence analyst, Professor Michael Clarke. So, Michael, when is a ceasefire not a ceasefire?
Yeah, Jane, I mean, all ceasefires in the early stages tend to be a bit delicate, and particularly ceasefires which have been arrived at very quickly without a lot of preparation are even more delicate because, generally speaking, ceasefires take a bit of time to negotiate so that everyone knows what's supposed to happen and when it's supposed to happen, and there is some sort of monitoring arrangement so that somebody doesn't try to take an advantage by breaking it very suddenly. In this case, the ceasefire was just declared. It was sort of out of the blue as a result of phone calls. So it's not surprising that it will be a bit shaky. And indeed it was. I think it took everyone by surprise. I mean, a lot of people last night were saying, including me, that the battle between Iran and Israel would go on. And that still may be true. But at the same time, at the moment, we had a violation of the ceasefire this morning, followed by the intervention of President Trump, who was very tough. And that's what you need. For a ceasefire to hold, particularly in the early stages, then both sides have to keep recommitting themselves to it. And somebody from the outside, in this case the United States, has to keep pushing them, and in some cases even bullying them. And what President Trump said, expletives deleted, was pretty clear that, he will not tolerate the breakdown of this ceasefire, even though it's very much in Israel's interest that the ceasefire doesn't hold. Israel would like to carry on because they've got more they would like to accomplish in terms of dismantling Iranian military power. But the Iranians need this ceasefire, and I suspect that they will try now to stick to it.
Who would you say are the winners after what's happened over the last couple of weeks?
Well, the immediate winners are Israel. As your previous correspondent was saying, the momentum since the atrocities of October the 7th, 2023, has shifted towards Israel. So Israel has weathered that particular storm. Netanyahu weathered that storm of October, in which people thought that he would not survive more than a few weeks because it was clearly his fault that the attack had happened in the first place, and he would be responsible for it. And he still may be held responsible for it. But here we are, 18 months later, he's still in power, and Israel has turned the whole pendulum back. So the Israelis have dealt with Hamas in Gaza. Gaza is a terrible humanitarian mess, and it's a political mess, but Hamas is no longer really a military threat to Israel. They've neutralized to a large extent Hezbollah in Lebanon. They're expanding their settlements on the West Bank without very much pushback. So the Greater Israel project is on the go, which is what Netanyahu has always wanted. They've dealt with the Houthis, who are still in being as a power that will strike at Israel, but they're strategically irrelevant. They're just a bit of a nuisance, to be honest. And now Netanyahu has taken on, in a great piece of opportunism, a piece of great opportunism, Iran, and undermined the United States when he did so. I mean, the US was negotiating with Iran, putting pressure on Iran to negotiate a deal, and Netanyahu just undercut that by attacking Iran 12, 13 days ago, and President Trump has been manipulated into coming in behind him. But President Trump then saw the opportunity, manipulated though he was, of going for this strike at the weekend, strike on Iran's nuclear facilities, which won't have been total. It won't have completely demolished the Iranian nuclear program, but it certainly damaged it quite a lot and certainly set it back by some considerable way, but it won't have completely eliminated it. Nevertheless, President Trump can emerge from this at the moment with great credit. Netanyahu emerges with a great sense that he has given Israel more opportunities to remake the Middle East in a way that's more favourable to Israel than any previous Prime Minister of Israel back to 1948. So he looks like the big winner at the moment. But all of this, I have to say, is very delicate. It could all go very wrong. We're on a knife edge between success and failure, both for Israel and the United States. But at the moment, they look successful.
And in terms of keeping this ceasefire, of getting it to hold, is that going to involve direct talks between the US and Iran?
Yes, almost certainly. If not direct talks, certainly indirect talks. And the Qatar government is very good at doing this. I mean, I think Qatar is always the conduit between the United States and Iran, because they get on very well with the Iranians, and they've tried to play a mediating role on very specific issues. And I think the idea of keeping a ceasefire on course means dealing with issues as they arise, trying to head off misunderstandings, try to suppress any elements of indiscipline, because remember, the Iranian system is at sixes and sevens because so much of the command structure has been destroyed. So local units of the IRGC, the Iranian Republican Guard, who will have some power to unleash missiles, could still do so. And any tendency towards that, any indications that that may be happening, that either, as it were, renegade groups, as it were, of the IRGC, or even third parties, militias, trying to attack American bases or other Israeli assets, all of that will have to be suppressed, which means a great deal of monitoring, a great deal of constant communication. So as and when something does happen, as I suspect it will in the next 24, 48 hours, there will be other breaches, then they have to be dealt with as blips, not systemic breakdowns of the ceasefire. And for that, the Americans will be talking indirectly, I would guess, through Qatar to Tehran.
And I guess a lot of people will look at this and think, oh, well, the battle's over now, an agreement's been reached. But from what you're saying, the battle is only the very, very first stage of this. It's holding that ceasefire that is the real fight, that is the real war. Yeah,
I mean, this is a ceasefire in this battle that opened up 12, 13 days ago when the Israelis attacked the nuclear facilities of Iran. But the Israeli-Iran conflict, I'm sure, will go on in different ways. At the very least, it will be a sort of grumbling guerrilla-level conflict. It will involve a lot of cyber attacks on both sides. It will involve probably attacks on their interests around the region. I think, that side of it, I think, will continue. But whether it will be a matter of strategic strikes against each other's homeland, the Iranians trying to attack Israel, civilian sites in Israel, and Israel trying to dismantle even further the governmental structure of Iran, which they've been doing pretty efficiently now that they've got almost complete control of Iranian airspace. I mean, whether that side of it will go on for a while, I don't know. I suspect it will come back into the reckoning before too long, but at the moment it's off the table. But undoubtedly, this antagonism, long-standing historical antagonism between the Iranian Revolution of 1979 and the establishment of Israel of 1948, that will go on.